I believe our very lives are a matter of stewardship. The way that we use what we have matters to the one who made us. He intended for us to manage this life and all that comes with it. This is a podcast to connect the dots of all the ways we manage the substance of our lives, from hard work to housework, from relationships to identity, from purpose to desires, wellness, creativity, and everything that makes up our lives. This is a sisterhood centered on Christ. On this podcast, I'll be sharing thoughts and transparent talks on what God is teaching me as I wear these different hats and manage various things just like you do, only differently, in my own style for His glory. Listen in. Part 2 of the episode about money. And I just wanted to give some tangible, just practical steps that we took in order to pay down debt and in order to get out of debt. Because stewardship, obviously, if you haven't listened to part 1, I'm going to tell you, if this is your first time listening to the podcast, this podcast is about stewarding every area, because I believe that everything that we have is a gift from God. And especially as those who have been saved by grace through faith in Jesus Christ and call Him Lord, God cares about every single part of our life and how we manage that, because ultimately we don't own it, we manage it. And I'll leave that one right there. So people have found this podcast through just looking up the word stewardship. And stewardship is connected to finances so much. And I spoke in the first episode about, stewardship. The first time I'd really heard it was it was part of like a sermon on financial stewardship. And it's kind of like the buck stops there in a lot of ways. But as believers, every part of our lives, we can look through this lens of stewardship and over the fact that God has given us resources to manage all the things that He's given us. So some of the things that my husband and I did when we were paying down debt was we stopped doing things that were not necessary. And one of the ways that we saved money was before my husband and I got married, he did not cook. Like, he grilled, but he didn't really cook. And he was buying lunch out every single day. So we're talking about $7 to $12 lunches. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you also do that for dinner, so just say $14 a day. By typically he was working 5 to 6 days. 5 days, that's $70, right? Let's say 70, the average month, we're going to say times maybe 4, that's $280. $280 in a month. That doesn't sound like a lot until you factor in, guess what? You still have to eat breakfast, right? You might want a snack. And then that does not account for the weekends. So one of the things he always tells people is one of the biggest ways that we saved money was not buying little energy. He would buy a little energy drink at the gas station when he would fill up on his way to work. And to the tune of $3. Sometimes he would buy a couple for a friend. Sometimes he would buy 2 if he was going to have a really, really long day. And then he would also buy bottled water. So you see where I'm going. So much of his money was eaten up by food and beverages and, stopping at Starbucks and all of these different things. And one of the first things that we did was super easy. We stopped doing that. That was it. We stopped doing that. I started making, when I would cook dinner, I would send him with leftovers. And then on the days that he didn't want that, we would also have sandwiches and chips, and we eat a lot differently now, but sandwiches and chips and pickles on the side. And, I would buy the huge pack of bottled water from the store. So that was such an easy way of saving at least, and I mean this, at least $170 to $100 every week. And mind you, $100 was enough to buy groceries for the entire week for all meals. So you see where I'm going? That was a really easy way that we were able to save money right from Jump Street. So that was it. Pack your own lunch, take your own water, buying anything from any sort of concession or like anything that is convenient for you to buy is going to be inconvenient for your wallet 9 times out of 10 because you're paying someone else to do the work for you to make it convenient for you to have. So that was one of the easiest ways that we did that. So that money that we saved with that, we started paying down debt that either of us had. So, I was making money, he was making money. At that time I was working from home. I just started my jewelry business, which that was such a beautiful like God thing. It was so awesome. And that was one of the easiest ways that we did that. Then we started, calling around and seeing, if we could settle certain debts that we had before we got married, doing payment plans. And this is a tip that I like, uh, seriously, this saved us so much money. So there was one situation where we called and it was about settling, and we were able to settle for a third of what we owed if we could pay it all. And since we had money in savings, we were able to go ahead and do that. So that's another tip. Always see if you can set up a payment plan, getting a discount up front if you're going to be self-pay for, say, some medical thing or some dental thing, or you know anything that would allow you to ask. Just it never hurts to ask, and it's your money, so why wouldn't you? So we did that, started sending principal payments to my car on top, over and above what we were sending for just like my regular car payment. So that was another way. All of these things just built upon the other. And once we paid off one thing, then we were actually able to start putting larger sums of money on larger debts. We were able to pay off most of our consumer debt before we even purchased a home. And I speak about this I wrote about this in the blog post that's entitled, I think it's like Marriage and Money, or Money and Marriage, It Can Work. And I'll link that in the show notes. It's also linked on episode 1. If you haven't listened to that yet, you can pop over there and listen to that. But it was such a beautiful thing because we started looking at money as a tool as opposed to bills that we had to pay. We looked at it as, okay, we signed up for this thing, for this loan or whatever it was, and we agreed to pay for it. So we're going to pay for it because that's what we said we were going to do. And it was kind of a struggle. He and I were like, oh, this is a large sum of money to just spend, because a lot of times we look at the here and now and we don't look at what it's going to, we look at what we have to give up now as opposed to what we're gaining in the future. And a lot of times the reverse is true. We look at, oh, this is all I have to pay right now. The payment plan, I'm sorry, the loan amount, this is all I have to pay on my mortgage. We'll worry about tomorrow when tomorrow gets here. So I think you can be in either camp. And the best, in my opinion, and in our experience, the best way to go about paying for anything, signing up for any loans, is giving yourself margin to be able to pay things off if something should happen. So say you, God forbid, you lose your job, or the company downsizes, or you know they start cutting, wages, or whatever the case may be, or bonuses. Something happens in the economy and that bonus you were expecting it, you don't get anymore. So that's just another example. The other thing that we did, every time we would get a tax refund, we would take a little bit out and we would enjoy it. We would go out to eat and do stuff like that, which we were still going out to eat on the weekends since, we weren't paying for lunch every day. We had some money where we could, spend going out, and it wasn't a big deal, even while we were paying off debt. But what we did was we would take that money and we would throw it at a large debt. And that was such a game changer for us because it's something that even to this day we do. if we get, money back from, well, we get money back from taxes, which I also learned you shouldn't be getting too much back because you're giving too much of your money away. You're overpaying in taxes. But when we would get our taxes back, what we would do is we would spend some, put some in savings, and then the rest we would use for vacation. So that's another really, really easy way of not going into debt over vacation, still enjoying what you worked for, but using it to benefit you. Because if your money is not benefiting you and it's just a struggle where everything you do, it's like you owe somebody with every check that you get, it's really, really hard to enjoy things knowing that there's something hanging over your head, knowing that like you're indebted to someone. And again, I will say this: you are not a bad person if you have debt. I am not the standard. I'm not on this podcast saying that me and my husband are the standard or that I'm the standard or anything like that. God's word and way is the standard. And I believe that, he says that we shouldn't be in debt to anybody. It says, "Oh, no one anything but to love them." Like, oh, no one, don't owe anybody anything. So yeah. So that was one of the other things that we did. What else did we do? I started buying generic stuff. I started like doing couponing. We eat differently, so we don't even use coupons anymore. Um, we That's a whole other segment. I'll share what we do to save money, like grocery shopping, getting organic things. You can actually check out the YouTube video that I did on my favorite healthy snacks. I like going to Aldi, I like going to Lidl, I like going to Whole Foods for specific things and Trader Joe's. I buy some things offline and I still make pretty much all of our food because I just, I'm a nutritionist and I try to eat things as clean and as whole as possible because that's just the way that our health seems to thrive. So, those are just some of the ways that we saved money, paid things down, set up payment plans, made sure that we didn't get a mortgage that if something should happen, we didn't really have margin in our lives, in our time, or with our money to be able to pay back without, you know what I mean, the stress of having to take on extra jobs or anything like that. So I don't feel like your lifestyle should ever like just kill you. You know what I mean? Like, there when it comes to here's the other thing that we save money on. So my husband, he goes and he gets his haircut, and in between, like when it's just he just needs a little bit taken off the sides, I actually bought like I don't remember the brand, but I bought a good set of clippers off Amazon. And anybody can cut hair with a guard. I'm just saying, it's really not hard. And since those lines were already there in his hair, and all I had to do was keep it the same way around, it's not hard to do. Anything fancy I cannot do, but I cut my husband's hair and my son's hair because, well, my son's not gonna sit and let anybody else do his hair because he's just not. Um, I have done my own hair since I was a kid because my mom did not have time for that. Before I allowed my hair to like grow out with like the natural curl, which I call a curly frizz. Before I let it grow out that way, I was getting a chemical relaxer. And when I was younger, my mom would put Just For Me. Who remembers Just For Me in the box? Like, anyways. 90s, right? So she would put that in my hair. I learned how to do that myself. And this was out of necessity because if not, I was going to go to school and my hair was going to look a mess because my mom did not have time with 7 kids to do my hair on days where she was not feeling it. So I learned to do my own hair. It was not that hard. If it grows out of your head, I'm sure you've washed it yourself before at some point. And just there is YouTube University and you can learn just about anything. um, so I, allowed my hair to go natural, and I still to this day do my own hair because 2 reasons. I don't have the time to sit for 3 and 4 hours for someone else to do my hair. I just don't. Time-wise, it does not make sense for me at all. And then, this humid weather that we have in the dirty, dirty South, I can't like getting my hair straightened and getting like the Dominican blowout makes no sense for me when it's like hot. So That's another way of, your nails. You can paint your own nails and save yourself $40. You can do your own hair and save yourself anywhere from 30 to 100 and something dollars, depending on if you dye it yourself. If you don't feel comfortable dyeing your own hair, you can actually go and get that done, but still do everything else yourself. Or instead of going every week, you could go every other week. If you want to save money, seriously, if there's a will, there's a way. You will figure out how. And there are so many ways to, like, even coloring your hair at night. There are some natural hair care products that you can get online for like 20 bucks that don't have all the crazy ingredients, that you can dye your own hair. It's not that hard. If you want streaks and if you bleach your hair, that stuff, you definitely want to go to a professional. Disclaimer, anything that I'm saying here is what has worked for us. Do all of these things at your own, you know what I mean? Yeah, I'm gonna leave that right there. So those are just some of the ways that we have saved. There are many other ways, but I feel like those are the big ticket things. And I guess I guess I'll leave this podcast episode there because there's so much more. Um, but your money and how you spend it is such a mirror for what you think is valuable and important. And what we spend time on is what we care about. And in order to make money, you have to spend some sort of time. And the way that you live your life, your time really is the way that you live your life. So, how much margin we have in our lives, how based on how much debt and how much we owe someone else or some other institution, I think that it matters to God because it really does affect our relationships. It affects our time. It affects how much margin we have in that time, and the ability that we have to spend time with other people, to do other things. If we are stretched so thin in all areas, we don't feel like we can rest because we don't feel like we have enough time to do so, because we feel like, oh, time is money. Um, and we are just bogged down by the pressure and the weight of owing someone something. And you're not a bad person if you owe somebody something. Please don't ever hear me say that. I just wanted to just provide some really practical things that worked for us, how we paid to get out of debt. And I'm going to say this, like, it's only by the grace of God and his wisdom that we were able to do so. Seriously. Looking at the bigger picture of what we wanted later on down the line, and really invite God into your decision making. Ask God before you're about to make a big purchase. Sleep on it. There are so many tactics and so many resources out now that will really give you the tools that you need if you want to apply them to getting out of debt, to saving money, to saving your sanity, um, in order to really steward what you have well in all areas, like money, your heart, your time. Seriously, we can do everything to the glory of God. And when we do, it benefits us. That's the beautiful thing. Like, it benefits us. It truly does. And God really does know what's best. And he knew what he was talking about, and he always does. So I just want to encourage you in that. I might do a part 3 to kind of close this out, recap everything, and share some other things that we did as far as money, as far as saving money. And I like, don't get me wrong, like, we have nice things. Thank you, God. Like, we have nice things. Um, but we know in order to have those nice things, we know what it costs. And that's the other thing. I truly believe that if you recognize how much it costs to get something, you treat it with care. Like, seriously, you really do. You treat it with care. When you were younger and you got your first job and you saw what it took and how much time it took you to earn a certain amount of money to do this thing or to buy this thing, you were like, I really like that designer bag, but I already have one. I can wait, or I can save up for it. You do things with an intentionality of from a place of recognizing what that costs, like counting the cost. So I will leave that one here and I will probably do a part 3 just to sum everything up and to share some other things that we've done. But you can check out that blog post that I was talking about. You can check out episode 1 if you haven't listened to that yet. And until next time, your life matters. What you do with it matters. So, what will you steward well? Thank you so much for listening.